Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Try listening to them on audio. Featuring sound effects and music directly from the movies, Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. From brand new audiobooks such as Thrawn Treason and the audiobook exclusive Dooku Jedi Lost, to our blockbuster movie tie-in editions, you'll have plenty to keep you entertained. Start listening wherever audiobooks are sold.
This is Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com, and you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z. This is the podcast you're looking for.
This is Vanessa Marshall, Harrison Dula from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hello, friends, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi show number 296. We are your spoiler-free place for Star Wars discussion, analysis, and rhetoric. I'm your host, Dan Z, drinking One Nation coffee out of my Black Spire Outpost mug. Yes, I know I drank it the last couple of weeks, but I have washed it since then, and I love it. It's going to be hard to beat this one. I'm so excited. The Galaxy's Edge is alive and well on both coasts, and people are having so much fun. At the time of this recording, our co-creator Cory Clubb is there with his family, so we're looking forward to catching up with him. Coffee with Kenobi is brought to you by MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. For all of your travel needs to Disney theme parks and the cruise lines, or wherever you want to go on vacation, be sure to go to our affiliate link, which can be found in the show notes on the front of our webpage or on social media, and sign up for a free, no-obligation quote. You'll have the best vacation possible and help out Coffee with Kenobi in the process. On today's show, speaking of Cory, myself, and Tom Gross went to Indiana Comic-Con recently, and join us as we drive home from this convention, explore what goes into making a convention so special, and finally recap the trailer of The Mandalorian that debuted at the D23 Expo. So pull up a chair, grab your favorite coffee mug, and let's have some coffee with Kenobi. Before I kick off the show, I want to address something that happened recently on our Coffee with Kenobi feed. As you know, we use Spreaker, which is a website where we host our RSS feed, which is the way that podcasts are distributed to podcast catchers like iTunes, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, all those places you hear me mention at the end of each and every show. So one of the things you do when you have Spreaker as your podcast distributor is you put little markers throughout the audio file of your podcast, and they will insert, not manually, it's actually done through some sort of algorithm, some sort of system. I'm not 100% sure the technical way that it happens, but insert ads into your shows at the beginning, at the middle, and the end. It's a good revenue stream for us, and it's a good way to help ourselves be heard in many more markets than we normally would. So these are all great things. They've all benefited the show in many ways. But recently, through a weird glitch, Spreaker inserted some Jewel ads into our show. Now, I want to be really, really clear on this. Myself and Coffee with Kenobi do not support, endorse, or use Jewel or vaping or any of those products. I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, and I take care of myself. I don't use Jewel or anything that is harmful. So if you heard those ads, please know that I was as shocked as you were, probably more, because that's not an accurate representation of myself or the show or our belief system. So I apologize wholeheartedly. I have reached out to Spreaker about this and was told that this was something that happened that they didn't want to happen. I think a lot of shows who use Spreaker ran into the same problem. I addressed it on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram, but I wanted to make sure that you, our dear friends and family and supporters of Coffee with Kenobi, heard that was a major guffaw that I do not endorse. I was really embarrassed by and frustrated by. It had nothing to do with me or this show, and I hope that never, ever happens again. Please, please, please let me know, because we can't let that happen. We trust Spreaker to make sure that they put ads in our show that are family-friendly and safe. We don't endorse gambling or nicotine or any of those things. We're a family-friendly show, and we want to talk about Star Wars, have some fun, have some laughs, and make you think. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump into this week's show.
So who talks first? You talk first? I talk first.
Welcome back, everybody. Now we're here with some other friends, some friends you have spent a little more time with, especially if you are a contributor to our CWK Patreon page. I'm here in the car, in one of the Coffee with Kenobi shuttles, on our way home from Indianapolis from the Indiana Comic-Con. I'm here with Tom Gross.
Hello, everybody.
Cory Clubb.
Howdy-ho.
Who else is here? We've got 3 other guests. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. Hi, I'm Keaton. Hi, I'm Mason.
Yes, we all have one member of each of our children here with us, so we had an absolute blast. Guys, let's talk about Indiana Comic-Con.
Sure, yeah. This is not our first rodeo, obviously. You guys have heard us before. We've been here before. This is a fun cross-country trip. Well, cross-country? Cross-state lines trip. But we battled the rainy weather to make it here on this fine Sunday. And we had a great time. I think one of the funnest things, like we just introduced, our children that came with us. Something was a last-minute deal. We thought, let's bring one of our kids with us. And we each grabbed one of the kids, and the others got to stay home and cry. And so, no, it's all good. We had a good time, I think, with them. That was something that was the biggest opportunity for us to bring one of our kids with us, was this kind of a con that is kind of family friendly, if you will. It's not a huge con, but it's also not a small con. I think it's definitely up there with some of the other cons that would be state driven. But this was cool, I think, because there was a lot of comic book stuff there, a lot of cross geekdom stuff, and definitely some fun things to see.
I will reflect that, what you said about bringing our kids, Cory. It has been so much fun. And I've got a question for both of you, but I will say that this is the second time that Kaylee has gone to the Indiana Comic-Con with me. We went a few years ago when Ian McDermott and Ray Park were there, and had the opportunity to see them speak on the panel. It was so much fun, and really fell in love with McDermott as a person, and Ray Park as well. But McDermott's the way he uses the language, and you can just tell he's a trained performer, and so that was a lot of fun several years ago. And so Kaylee's been through this before, but what I wanted to ask you guys was, how was it bringing? So we can do like a 2-level answer here. So for the dads, how was it taking your sons to a con for the very first time, and then all the way in the back of the car, you guys? I want to know what your reactions are to the very first con that you've attended. So, dads, let's start with you.
So this was Mason's first trip to any kind of convention of any kind. I told him the other day that I was going to bring him, and he said, sure. And he was very excited, but I don't think he realized what he was in for. When we got ready this morning to go to the event, he packed his Kylo Ren Halloween costume, which is a great-looking costume. You've seen images of it on Twitter and on Instagram. Brought his lightsaber, and Dad got to carry that most of the day. Dad, parents out there know what that's like. But it was great. It was so much fun seeing it through his eyes. A lot of cool stuff as far as what we actually did. But Mason, why don't you tell everybody what you liked about going to the comic convention today, your very first one?
I liked all the comics, and I liked all the cool Legos that they had there.
And didn't you play a video game too?
Yeah, that Star Wars one was really cool.
Is it true? Is the rumors true that you blew up the Death Star today?
Yes.
Wow. Nice job.
Yeah, likewise. I think this is Keaton's first comic book convention or show of any kind. That it was fun to see kind of the whole environment through their eyes. I liked the fact that it was just kind of like they're just like tiptoeing a little bit over some of the attractions and whatnot, and just kind of had to step up, and everything seemed, I would assume, seemed very large. And then just having them with us, I think, was fun just to see that their little eyes kind of take everything in, all the artwork, all the characters, all the cosplay, the comics, all the merchandise, and just all kinds of cool stuff. I think it was cool to see that. And it took me back to my days as a young con goer, and myself. I was 10 years old, 12 years old, but definitely a fun time to be had. Yeah, well, not 12 anymore, but let's see what Keaton thinks about his day at comic book convention. Keaton, what do you think?
Same with Mason. I like the comics and Legos. The video games.
So, Keaton, what was one of your favorite comics that you dug out of some of those boxes you found? What's your favorite one so far?
Spider-Man vs. the Lizard.
Spider-Man vs. the Lizard. It was a McFarlane comic.
Ooh, nice.
So it is a lot of fun to see these kids, their eyes light up. Some of these classic characters. Definitely, we got a lot of pictures with some of the cosplayers. One of the highlight for Keaton, he told me, was holding Captain America's shield. One of the cosplayers had a shield. Pretty cool. I mean, just stuff like that you don't do every day. Like I said, it was just fun to see their expressions. Just them kind of poke me and go, "Oh, Dad, look at that!" Look at that. I just enjoyed the smiles on their faces. It's just so cool and a fun way to go out and have some fun.
Those are some of the best experiences of the first time, and I would reflect that seeing their eyes, and I saw that in both the boys today. And as a contrast, Kaylee, like I said, has been there already, and so she was picking up on a lot of things and pointing things out to me that I totally missed. So I have to ask Kaylee, what were some of the treasures that you found today, and what are your reactions to this convention, maybe versus what we saw before?
Some different things that I noticed today were, last time I went, I don't really remember much from it, but I remember it being really, really busy, and today it was less of that. It was kind of just there were still lots of people there, but not a lot like last time. I really liked the arts and crafts that were at the booths, so I found a lot of unique stuff like that.
What's your favorite pickup of the day? So much that you can't even pick one.
Speechless.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, so one thing that I thought was unique this time around for us, and Dan, I don't even know how this happened. Maybe you can explain the story a little bit. We had a good friend of ours, Ross, hang out with us for the day. And not only did he just kind of hang out with us, but he had the camera going, he had the mics going, he was following us around getting some footage. And this is like celebrity style. I feel like I was followed around with, paparazzi or something of that nature, but Ross was great. I thought it was fun to see him do his thing. I also thought it was fun to just get that kind of that natural feedback, I guess, from us wandering around the con and talking to people.
We got to see a lot of our CWK family. We got to talk to David Nicely for quite a bit and catch up with him. That was wonderful. He's such a great, charming guy and very excited to be at the convention. And I know you and Tom, you and Dave have spent some time chatting. Where did you guys you guys met at Celebration, is that right?
We did. We hooked up at Celebration, and I ended up playing the Fantasy Flight X-Wing miniatures game with David and his twin daughters. That was a lot of fun. I actually got to catch up with the girls today at the con and got their reactions. And this is their home con, and so they were there yesterday all day and today, and so they had a lot of insight into sort of the events and the crowd. And they said, as Kaylee mentioned, it was a pretty light crowd today on Sunday. But they said yesterday was had a lot more attendance and was a little tighter getting through the aisles and such. But it was great catching up with them.
Yes, and it really was. And what Cory mentioned earlier, Ross Halibin is a great Coffee with Kenobi supporter. He's a Patreon supporter. We met him at Celebration Chicago. He volunteered at Celebration, and he had told me today and back then that one of the main things he wanted to do is make sure he got to see Coffee with Kenobi on the podcast stage, which he absolutely did. And you will not find a nicer, more helpful guy. He reached out to me and said, hey, I'd like to do a video for you guys of a day in the life of Coffee with Kenobi. And we filmed that today. Cory and I were mic'd for some of it. We had an absolute blast. It was very natural. He's a great producer. His stuff was great. Can't wait until everyone sees it. We want to give Ross a very special Coffee with Kenobi thank you for doing this for us. We really can't tell you how much we appreciate it. It's great. This is such a great supportive family. And we asked him about it, and he said he likes giving back. He likes helping out fans and giving fans a voice, which is exactly what we thought when we started the show in the first place. One
of the things I thought was so interesting about that is that I didn't really think about. I tried to just pretend like he wasn't there. Not that I was ignoring him, but just, the guy with the camera.
Yeah, and that's what he suggested, too. It's more natural that way.
Yeah, and but what I would hear from the sides a few times that I'd hear someone asking him, "Who are those guys? Who are those guys?"
Yes.
And that was really cool. And I can't wait to see what his what he produces with what he got today. And man, what a great contribution. And I can't even imagine that, first of all, taking the time to follow us around all day long, but then the time that it's going to take to put that together. So
yeah,
what an honor.
Yeah, what an absolute blessing. Mason, you said you wanted to say something?
No.
Oh. Okay, good. Let's shift gears. We talked about this on the video, but the odds are that if you haven't seen the video yet, you're going to. But we're going to talk about the immediate thing that makes Indiana Comic-Con stand out from other conventions that we've attended. And the number one thing, let's just say it on the count of three, guys. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Comics.
Wow. That really was a disaster. And I'm not going to edit this, so let's try it again. 1, 2, 3.
Comics.
Yeah, there were so many comics. See, this is authenticity right here. There were so many stacks and tables and rows of comic books for you to peruse and look through. They had old school stuff. There was a lot more old comic books, more valuable comics than we expected, but they had bins of $5, $2, $1, 50-cent comics. And we were just diving in, and Cory and Tom were very excited on the way up to dive through and look at comics. And I found myself getting that bug too. I've been resisting it for a while because I've got mountains of comic books back at Casas there. But this was one of the most entertaining moments of the entire thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that's my feeling as well. That we talked about coming up today and talk about comics and digging into comics and getting to conventions, and how some bigger end conventions, San Diego Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, kind of lacks the comic scene. There's no necessarily vendors there to sell comics themselves, but this was overflowing with comics. Really, there was almost rows and rows and rows of comics of all kinds. If you're looking for older stuff, newer stuff, but we were the bargain bin hunters. I definitely think that was the funnest part, because I think to me it's unique to the fact that who knows what you're going to find. Pull anything out of there and just give it a go. And I think it was fun because like Tom was even looking for a couple things that I came across, and I like the fact that I'd be one aisle over and go, "Hey Tom, check this out," and pull it up. Oh yeah, save it over there for me. So I love that. I like that kind of that mentality of just like, I don't know, going around the tables and seeing things and the comics themselves. And I could have probably stood there longer and dug through more comics, but we had a lot more things to do.
Yeah, there was so much to see, but those comic boxes just kept coming and coming and coming. And yeah, I think it's almost more fun to dig through those 50-cent dollar bins, because it's amazing what you can find in there.
Right, I agree.
Some things that you're like, whoa, that's in there. And so like today I found some original Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm lacking in issues 1 through 11, and I found 2 of those in the 50 cent box. And then I've also been looking for the DC Dungeons and Dragons Dragonlance, and man, I went to town on those. I found, I don't know, probably 10 of them, because it was $10, and that was in the dollar box. So I found 10 of those that filled needs that I've been looking for quite a while. So it was a successful trip for me, but it was also fun looking at, Cory, you and I always joke about but enjoy finding those foil covers from the 90s.
Oh, those brutal
and man,
things.
we saw a bunch of those today.
Yes.
So that's always a blast.
I like that you keep transposing the words prices. What did you say? Seconds instead of cents.
Yeah.
It's sort of like parsecs, how that kind of got. So that's very
That's
much
right.
keeping in time. Yeah, the excitement of looking for comics is fun, because some of them have them organized alphabetically and some of them don't. They're just kind of thrown in there. So you just don't know what you're going to find. And one of the vendors I was talking to, I said, I'm looking for some old Hulks, because some of the old Hulks from the early 80s are really pretty fun. And he said, well, if you see DC in a box, then it's not in there. we have Marvel boxes and DC boxes. So that was the direction that I got, and it is better than nothing. And it did help. I found some really old Marvel Star Wars books, which I thought were really, really cool. But what I need to do, and we've talked about this, is I need to go through my entire collection back home, and the three of us are going to do that. Hopefully soon we can plan something like that, so we can see what I've got and what I need to get to add to my collection.
That's always the case too. We talked about on the way up here, like when you find something, do you know if you have it or not? And Tom had a list going. Every so often he'd result to, I got to pull the list out. Let me see if I got it. Just because it was like, got to know. And I know, I have a feeling I might have bought a couple doubles today. But it's okay. It's the fact that, like, they catch your eye. I think that's what makes comics great, I think. Even those foil covers, like you mentioned, they're goofy and kinky, and the fact that, like, that they just grab your eye. I think that's what they're made to do, and that's what comic books should be. It should be fun, it should be enjoyable. And I know that for our kid, for Keaton, he was on the hunt for some Captain America comics and some Spider-Man comics, and found some great ones he's excited about getting into and looking at.
Yeah, that I have to say, and I know I said this on the video, but that was so much fun looking over to you guys, because at one point we were all in a line, all four of us, Kaylee and me and you and Keaton, and I looked over and your hands are digging through, and I saw his hands digging through, and I just had to snap that shot. That was such a great photo.
The majority of when you guys were doing a lot of your comic book searches, Mason and I were on the lookout for toys, because he was looking for, he just wanted to see different Star Wars toys or Avengers. He really wanted to find a Thanos Infinity Gauntlet, not the real one, because that one's at the Smithsonian, I think. And there were so many options and so many fun things. Tom was really close to buying a vintage B-Wing that was not out of the package. It wasn't in the best shape ever. I almost think it was from the Power of the Force. I don't think it was from the original Kenner line.
No, I don't think so either. And I knew it was sort of in rough shape, but you know what? It would fit right along with most of my toys in that shape. So
your toys are in good shape, I thought.
But I just had never seen a B-Wing and held one before. I guess I shouldn't say I'd never seen one, but I'd never held one before, and I was playing around with it and getting the wings to pop open and how the cockpit rotates. Man, I was sold, and I even had them talked down in dollars, but we had just gotten there, and so I'm kind of glad I walked away from it for my marriage. But for my collection, I was a little sorry to see it slide by. But that was such a cool piece.
Anything else that you want to talk about with the convention? Because I do want to throw out a topic that we really haven't explored in all that much detail, and that would be the trailer for The Mandalorian from the D23 Expo. So
can I mention one more thing about the convention then?
Please.
Because we've talked about this before, but I think one of the neat things about a mid-sized convention like this is how much local talent and accessibility there is to the talent at a convention like this. Everything from meeting Jim Starlin and being able to have a conversation with him, to running into some old artists, not old in age, but old artists as far as like
legends,
how long I've known them. At Star Wars Reads Day a few years ago, I had an artist by the name of J.M. Hunter, and he moved to Columbus, Ohio. And it was just cool to see him displaying here at Indiana, and just being able to catch up with him, and seeing some other folks that I've seen at different conventions, and them remembering me and me remembering them, and being able to say hi. I think that is so neat. And it's a great way to sort of make a new connection to the fandom of conventions when you start to get to know some of those people.
It's great, and you do start to see faces. I went over and was just talking to different people. Joe Caroni was there. He was a great Star Wars artist. We didn't get a chance to talk to him because we were like two ships passing in the night. But I've seen him at some of these conventions before, and obviously his talent is immense. He's a big Star Wars fan too, and it's cool. I mean, this is like a culture. This is not like culture. This is a culture of fandom where we celebrate not just Star Wars, but comic books and manga and TV shows and movies, and it's all wrapped up in a nice, family-friendly, as you said, environment, which is great. We had a great time at Indiana Comic-Con. Thanks to them for having us there, and we look forward to future adventures at this con. I'm going to go ahead and insert a natural break here because the second part of the show we're going to talk about the Mandalorian trailer from the D23 Expo. This is Coffee with Kenobi.
Greetings. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Coffee with Kenobi.
Looking to catch up on the latest Star Wars books? Try listening to them on audio, featuring sound effects, music, and top-notch narrators from the movies. Star Wars audiobooks are the definitive listening experience. From Luke Skywalker to Kylo Ren to Admiral Akbar, you'll recognize all of your favorite characters. Listen to movie tie-ins like The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, and original titles such as Thrawn Treason, Alphabet Squadron, Master and Apprentice, and the audiobook exclusive Dooku Jedi Lost. With Star Wars audiobooks, you'll have plenty of Star Wars listening to keep you entertained. Available wherever audiobooks are sold. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is the travel service that I use for the show and for my family, and it is absolutely wonderful. Their signature service and expert advice will help clients maximize their vacation time and dollar. Their no-cost, no-obligation quote when you use the service is awesome, and they also proactively adjust a booking if the rate goes down. They will help your family enjoy everything Galaxy's Edge and the Disney theme parks and cruise lines have to offer, help plan every detail, and will share invaluable tips. Be sure to go to our affiliate link, which can be found in the show notes, on the front of our webpage, or on our social media, and sign up for a free, no-obligation quote. You'll have the best vacation possible and help out Coffee with Kenobi in the process. Before we get to our thoughts on the Mandalorian trailer, I want to thank our CWK Patreon contributors, Jason Hall, Dennis Keithley, David Nicely, Jeff Ellis, Colby Mead, Yancey Evans, Ross Halliban, Frank Mulder, Alexander Moylan, Melinda Wolf, Aaron Harris, Chris Gavarka, Angela Sauce, Rebecca Raven, Simbot Detradarian, Christine Turk, Sean Reed, Kurt McKellen, Dan Ream, Brian Harding, Blake Weaver, Jim Capron, Caroline Maselli, Chris Metz, LJ Souter, Thea Selby, Daz Davies, Christian Dale, Brian McKinney, Jared Cantor, BJ Smith, Eric Struthers, Nick Deco, and Mark Suter. Being a member of our Patreon contributors is a wonderful thing for us because you help the show in so many ways. You keep the lights on, keep things going in the studio, and help with the travel and all things that go into producing and making the show each and every week. It's a labor of love, but your contributions sure make that so much better. And more importantly, you get something out of it as well. The first thing you get out of it is for $5 or more a month, you get access to CWK Patreon show, CWK Pour-Over, hosted by myself, Tom Gross, and Cory Clubb, which is an absolute blast. Last week, Tom and I talked about the Joker trailer and the buzz surrounding his upcoming film and the psychology of what it means to be scared in a movie theater. It was really fascinating stuff. This week, we're going to talk about sort of how we have our studios and our collections on display, kind of the thought process and the philosophy of what we collect and how we display things in our studios. It was a blast. And that's really what this thing is all about. It's the behind-the-scenes stuff. It's the thoughts on things that are Star Wars, yes, but also popular culture. And it is a great time doing that with Tom and Cory each and every week. And those come out on Sunday morning. So, hey, so you're sitting there, it's Sunday morning, you're having your coffee, enjoying time with your family, and you have a CWK pour-over to listen to. What could be more fun than that? On a serious note, however, 10% of your monthly contributions to Coffee with Kenobi goes directly to the St. Jude Children's Hospital to help out those patients and their families. If you have any questions, be sure to email me, danz@coffeewithkenobi.com. I'm happy to answer anything you have about Patreon. But if you want to sign up right now and hear CWK Pour-Over, help out St. Jude, and get access to t-shirts, coffee mugs, special videos, and so much more, go to patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi and sign up today. Now let's talk about The Mandalorian, which just seems like a random place to put it, but honestly, last week with the D23 Expo and me going back to Galaxy's Edge, and then Lisa going to Walt Disney World for the Galaxy's Edge preview, and all the different things that went on with the D23 sizzle reel for The Rise of Skywalker, we really didn't get to talk very much about the Mandalorian trailer, and I think it warrants a lot of discussion. So I know you guys are really excited about this. Cory, I'll let you take the lead here. Tell me your thoughts on that trailer.
Yeah, I was totally impressed with the celebration footage we saw. We had a sizzle reel then and kind of like a small clip. I remember seeing that. with The Mandalorian at Celebration. That was this past spring. And it just blew me away. I loved the direction, I loved the style, the designs, the actors are great. That's just everything is just really working for me. I like it's going to be on a small screen, and the fact that it's just a new avenue for Star Wars, putting out episodic film feature of a sort. But this is just a new territory too. The kind of the edge of the galaxy, backwater grittiness of it. It felt like it was very New Hope-ish, kind of like that. I don't know. There's that Star Wars grime to it, if you will. And I think it's a cool place to be. I think we don't know this character. We don't know any of these characters yet until the show kicks off. And having this new trailer come out for Disney Plus was excellent because as Disney Plus is kind of kicking off, they're definitely going to get their feet wet in the whole new original show approach with Star Wars. That's a good thing going. I think a lot of folks are signing up for Disney Plus just for this show alone. But for me, this trailer was awesome. I love the fact that we get to see a little newness about some of the scenes and the characters in a couple areas. I think the character, the Mandalorian himself, is very mysterious, very kind of a dark cowboy. I can hear his spurs walking as he's walking through the desert and whatnot. He's violent, he's gritty, he's a bounty hunter, right? So it's basically the fact that he's doing his job, and whatever needs to be done, he takes it. So I'd like to know his backstory. I'd like to know what's going on in this world, this underbelly of Star Wars. I've only seen it in pieces, but this is a good spotlight, I think, for some new adventures in Star Wars, and hopefully this branches into more and more to come.
I like the fact that you mentioned specifically that we're going to experience this on a small screen. Looking at the story and knowing what we know about it going forward, I think that small screen is going to give us a personal connection to the story and to these characters. We're going to view these for the first time in our own homes. The other aspect that I like about television, or streaming service in this case, is the manner in which Disney is going to be releasing this. Rather than the full season dropping all at once, we're getting the single week episodes that are going to give us that opportunities to digest each episode, digest the new events, the new characters that show up in this. And once again, I feel like that goes back to that personal connection, that we're really going to take it bit by bit. And, it's the first time, correct, it's the first time it's a live action TV show for Star Wars. And, we've had that feeling and we've had that sense with Rebels and Clone Wars and Resistance. But here we're getting in a live version. And I think it's going to only bring that intensity even more. Are we ready to talk about scenes, or do we want to... Dan, do you want to give an overview first?
Overview, I've said before, I'm looking forward to it because it's a live-action Star Wars. I trust Dave Filoni. I trust Jon Favreau. I trust Taika Waititi and Bryce Dallas Howard and everyone that's working on this thing. The cast looks great. Carl Weathers looks absolutely ebullient whenever he talks about this. There's a lot of fun things to be excited about, but as I've said many times, one of the things and reasons I like Star Wars so much is because I like the hope aspect and the light in the darkness. And this feels like a bit of a recession of that because the Empire's down and they're in a bit of a state of chaos and jockeying for power in the universe. So it's going to be a little bit more dark and gritty than we're normally used to, at least from the original trilogy perspective. And that's okay. I'm very excited about seeing it. I put Kenobi at the top of my list of Disney Plus Star Wars stuff, but you can guarantee that as soon as it drops, I'll be logging in right away to watch it. And we will. People have been asking me, are you going to have a special spin-off review show where you review episodes of The Mandalorian? No, we're not going to have a special spin-off show. We're going to do it right here on Coffee with Kenobi. This is going to be your source for reviews of all the Disney Plus stuff. We're very excited to bring it to you. We're going to analyze it. We're going to break it down. We'll make commentary. It's going to be an absolute blast, and it looks like The Mandalorian is going to be rich fodder for that, and I agree with you on the way it's distributed, and we talked about this on CWK Pour Over. But the fact that it's not going to be fast food where I get to watch it all at one sitting or over a day or a weekend, I can savor this bountiful meal for 8 weeks. That to me is going to be much stronger and much more pleasing.
You've talked about that that feeling of that what you love about Star Wars is being hope, and so I just wonder, and I'm not going to speculate because that breaks our rules, but that's one thing I'm going to look for in this is when we watch the trailer on Twitter, I put something along the lines of, this is the story I've been waiting for since Empire Strikes Back. Who are these bounty hunters? And I do wonder what hope looks like in that world. And so maybe we'll see that aspect, and maybe that'll be drawn out in this. I don't know, but I agree, with you in the terms of that is what Star Wars has been all about, from a resistance to a new republic to a rebellion. So let's see what these bounty hunters' lives are like, and maybe there's a little hope there.
And maybe there will be some really fun Easter eggs and shout-outs to other aspects of the galaxy as well. So yeah, we can break down specific scenes if you want to.
If you haven't seen it, go check it out right now. Not a whole lot of spoilers. Like I said, we don't like speculating, but I think some of the scenes that did it well for me was just seeing the Mandalorian kind of doing his stride, doing his walk up across the desert, kind of into a room. You can see the room kind of captures his whole being of sorts, but also the fact that he is a fighter. He's got some action sequences in there that he's taken out some other characters. He's not against getting his hands dirty, doing it a rough way. We see one scene that sticks out in my head is he zip cords another character into a kind of a circular door that looks like it catches in him in it. Blast door, yeah. I want to assume it cuts him in half, right? I mean, that's how those work. But that's pretty gnarly, like you said, Dan. He's getting the job done. He's a bounty hunter. He's willing to do what it takes. We saw that in Empire, like you mentioned. He's willing to take Han Solo on and to get his man, get the bounty. And I think that's an interesting aspect. What drove these characters to do what they do, and why do they do what they do? In a sense of, is it for their own selfish reasons? Is it for some other reasons, as far as revenge, or possibly some kind of other gain, or just getting out there to make a buck? So it's interesting to me to see this go through, and the actor playing the Mandalorian escapes me right now, but Pedro Pascal, thank you. He's excited. If you've seen this guy, interview this guy, of him asked about the Mandalorian, he got a smile on his face. He's excited. I remember seeing him in a celebration, them interviewing him and asking him, he's like, who am I going to play? Who am I going to play? He's like, well, you're playing the Mandalorian. And he's just like, yes! It's just like that. It's just like the overall excitement. So just knowing that excitement goes into this character, I have a really good feeling of him being in those boots, and being able to take this character on and really have a lot of passion for this character, even though maybe this character doesn't have a passion to give out. So it'd be really interesting to see how he's going to portray that on the screen.
There's one line in that trailer, and I'm forgetting the adjective used to describe bounty hunting, but the character says bounty hunting is a something business. Do you guys? Dangerous, interesting. Now I don't remember. We're in the car, so we don't.
It might be dangerous or deadly, something like that.
Yeah, and I love that moment when he says that. And now whether this is just a cut in the show or if it's a cut for the trailer, but the Mandalorian stops and turns around, and all you see is a gaze through his helmet. And to me, that is just, it's cool. It's cool, it's menacing, it's dangerous, it's whatever adjective you want to put in there, because he fits it all right there. But I think one of my favorite shots of the whole trailer, and it's just a 2-second splice, you've got the Western showdown where the foe is off in the distance, and you've got a hip shot from somebody. I think it's the Mandalorian, but I can't confirm that. And all you see is the index finger tapping on the hilt of the gun or the holster. And I'm like, that's it right there. It is so cool. Where I thought Solo was going to be a Western movie, and in some ways it was, this is going to take it to that Western to a new level. And those are probably two of my favorite spots. But I think, the opening where, Cory, you mentioned he's walking past those into some establishment where there's stormtrooper helmets on a stick, sets a tone. And you get a lot of sort of shots of people just sort of sitting and looking. And I'm assuming that what we're going for there is that we're looking at him entering this establishment or this location, and it's just kind of all like that moment when the bad guy comes walking through, or the good guy, whoever comes walking through the tavern door and swings the things open, and everyone turns and looks and is like, "Ooh, there's that guy." So, oh boy, I'm really pumped for this.
The interesting thing about this, and I was just realizing it when I heard you both talking, is I feel like the kinetic style of the camera and the action in this, because it's a very visceral, and I talked about this at Celebration on the podcast stage, because we got to see about 10 or 15 minutes of the show. It's a very action-packed, but much more of a primal kinetic style. It's very aggressive and very, there's nothing graceful about the fighting. It's more like raw and gladiator-esque, and I think that's interesting. I also think the way the Mandalorian appears to be portrayed by Pedro Pascal, and like you said, Cory, his motion, his movements, kind of reminds me of how I think we used to picture Boba Fett in the early 80s when he wasn't on screen, and what he was like in his reputation, how he garnered that reputation as the most fearsome bounty hunter in the galaxy. And I think that we're seeing shades of that in The Mandalorian, which undoubtedly was inspired by Boba Fett. And I'm pretty sure Favreau's gone on record as saying there will be no Boba Fett in Season 1. So this isn't like a secret thing where Daniel Logan's going to show up. This is a new character. This is a new idea. And, as far as, like, we saw a lot of interesting characters. We saw, I think it was a Faline that turned around and winked. And then we saw an IG model, not IG-88, but I think it's IG-11. Does that sound right?
I think so.
It spins around, very active, and we saw IGs fighting in Clone Wars, but never seen it in live action. So, I mean, that's pretty cool too. I mean, I really, just talking to you guys and hearing your excitement, I've said that some of the Marvel Plus stuff I'm more excited about than The Mandalorian, but that doesn't mean it's not going to be great. And hearing your guys' enthusiasm is quite contagious, which is exciting for me, so that makes me even more looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the music that is going to underplay or play, behind the scenes of what's going on here, and how that's going to affect the narrative as well.
Yeah, one last thing I'll say about Mandalorian is the fact that I'm ready for it, but like you said, Dan, it's interesting to see these characters play themselves out, because this isn't a main character evolution. This isn't a solo story. This isn't Luke's trying to understand who he is. This isn't Leia trying to build a rebellion. This is a brand new character living in the underbelly. We've seen that a couple of places in Rogue One, I think. We see that kind of those back alleys and the dealings of this espionage and whatnot. We see that in Empire with some of the bounty hunters and Vader kind of interviewing them and telling them what to do. And we just never got that edge of the galaxy, and this is where it's going to be. This is that edge of the galaxy that I think these characters live on. It's unique, I think, because it's something that isn't brightly colored. It isn't for the faint of heart. It's going to be something that's going to be a little bit different. So that's what I'm excited for. I think for this world to expand upon and see where these characters will actually grow and change and develop.
I like where you went with that, because that's exactly where I was headed, was the places that they're going to be that we haven't seen, and it's not the Coruscant, the beautiful top side of Coruscant. When he's flying in his ship, which, by the way, I think is really cool. It's very industrial. It's very raw. And you see him flying over, 3 or 4 different settings that all are just unpleasant. And my favorite one is the one that looks like a dried up mud bed, and it's just cracked earth and dried mud, and he's flying over that, and you're like, what could possibly be in existence in a location like that? Well, here they are. And so that is I'm kind of looking forward to that. And these are going to be all new places, all new people, all new creatures, and I'm excited for a new place.
A whole new way to experience and develop ourselves in the Star Wars universe. Well, guys, everyone, thank you for joining us on the second half of the show. We had a blast at Indiana Comic-Con. We love breaking down the Mandalorian, and we look forward to more and more adventures. My goodness, Force Friday is coming up in the near future in a couple of weeks, and we're going to see Jedi Fallen Order merchandise, the Mandalorian merchandise, and of course the Rise of Skywalker merchandise. So expect some craziness to ensue there. Maybe we'll have Ross come down and do some video for Force Friday. I'm sure.
Listening to Coffee with Kenobi, you are the podcast you're looking for. This is...
Before we close out the show, I want to thank our CWK sponsors, Penguin Random House Audio, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, and One Nation Coffee. Please support them the way they support our podcast, and remember to listen to new and archive shows of Coffee with Kenobi wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, YouTube, where you can find the audio as well as some occasional videos, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, CastBox, Deezer, and our website, www.coffeewithkenobi.com, or wherever you enjoy listening to your favorite shows. And if you listen to the show through iTunes, please leave us a review. You can also find us on social media. In fact, please follow us on Twitter and Instagram, give us a like on Facebook, and check us out on Pinterest. We'd love for you to check out all of these places. Be sure to also listen to our CWK family of shows too, including Legends Library, Resistance Reactions, Comics with Kenobi, and Lattes with Leia. Please leave a review for each of their shows as well, and be sure to subscribe to each of them individually on their own respective feeds. In addition to the places that I just mentioned for Coffee with Kenobi, you can find me personally twice a month on the podcast Looking at Lucasfilm, part of the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, as well as on Twitter at Mr. Zer, MRZEHR. And you can find my writing on CWK's website, as well as on StarWars.com, where I have an official blogger there, and on IGN, where I contribute articles on Star Wars, as well as some other popular culture topics. Don't forget to check out www.patreon.com/coffeewithkenobi to support our podcast and help us keep the lights on. Our Patreon page is where you can listen to our exclusive weekly podcast, CWK Pour Over, hosted by me, CWK newsman Tom Gross, and Coffee with Kenobi co-founder Cory Clubb for just $5 a month. There are also opportunities to listen to special videos and see them, of course. I don't know why I said listen to videos, but you can, I suppose. But you can watch videos, there are photos and t-shirt opportunities, and so much more. Plus, 10% of your monthly contributions goes directly to St. Jude Children's Hospital each month. Thank you to all of you currently supporting us on Patreon, and thank you for considering being a member of our Coffee with Kenobi Patreon family. I want to thank our guests today, Cory Clubb, Tom Gross, and our kids for joining us on the way home from the Indianapolis Comic-Con. I also want to thank each and every one of you for listening to and joining me today for a cup of coffee. I really appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedules to talk about and break down the Star Wars saga with me. This is truly a wonderful mythology, and I cannot think of better people to discuss with than each and every one of you. And don't forget, if you're in the Indianapolis region this weekend on September 21st, I hope you'll join me and Tom Gross at the Hamilton County 4-H Fairgrounds in Noblesville, Indiana. Tom and I will be doing the show live from 2:30 to 3 o'clock, 3:15 or so, and I will also be doing Looking at Lucasfilm with Jim Hill from 4:30 to about 5 or 5:15. Until next time, this is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
There's no one here.